Hey, everybody, welcome back for another episode. We'll get right into things because we're going to be moving and shooting pretty quickly, mostly due to the fact that I am currently dying of the flu in California. So, if that ever worried anyone, there you go. Not probably the best time to have the flu wandering around in California. Anyways,
Well, I mean, people are going to get out of line ahead of you. So,
my path is quite clear at present.
yeah.
So,
You just cough and say, "Man, ever since I got back from China."
ooh, this has just been people just look at you. I'm already brown, so they already look at you. Imagine just going into a high class place. Yeah. So
People have
let's
been raiding
see.
like Walmart for like everything. I had to go there the other day, and
Oh, I can't even imagine
it's a madhouse because people are stockpiling stuff.
stockpiling stuff that they don't need and don't work.
Yeah.
That mask doesn't help nobody. Leave it to the doctors. Okay, but 3M is making a killing. Capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
Capitalism. Okay, so we're going to get into Picard first and foremost because we're a little behind this week, thanks to me. But last week's episode was the Impossible Box. And it finally kind of connects Captain Picard with Hugh finally, which is nice to see the pair back together. And I don't remember Hugh's actor right off the top of my head, but
Jonathan Del Arco.
Jonathan Del Arco. But we mentioned it before. He looks bloody fantastic. I don't know what he's been doing. I assume he's been acting since those episodes. But he is probably so far of this series a highlight for me, just in terms of seeing him again, seeing how he's evolved, which I think is a natural progression, which I like. He's not as cyborg, I guess, as TNG Borg were early on.
Oh,
they were very. It was strange because there were scenes where they have, how some of them don't have hands and have like little feelers and like little probes and stuff.
They have like the entire replacement for their arm.
Right, but they just like slide it over a regular human's arm in some episodes.
So it looks too long.
But like you see it sliding over an arm and not being removed. It was early TNG, but Hugh is a standout of the Borg, so it's good to see him back here.
He was outside, like a season 3 character, right?
Yeah, he came back a couple times.
Season 3, season 4.
And so that connection for the two of them was cool. We learn more about Soji and our little Romulan incest people get taken.
I'm so glad everybody has noticed that.
Oh, I'm so glad too.
It's gross.
We get so I didn't hate this episode. I have a lot of issues with it. It's not like
are endemic to this entire series thus far.
Yes, a lot of people are
okay. It's better than the previous weeks, but
are praising things. A lot of people are praising things in this, and it's not Star Trek to me. So the farther a lot of people will tell you, well, you have to separate things. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what you should be doing for this, because that's not what this was billed as.
This is a franchise. It's not.
Yes, this is supposed to connect. That's the entire reason, and that's the entire reason these Star Trek shows take place a lot of the times in like different eras, so they don't fuck with anything.
Yeah,
right. That's why Enterprise could do whatever it wants.
It also gives them something to build off of. Like,
right, and there's still a connection there in the history of
years. So, yeah.
And this one just feels wickedly out of place, but we get everything in this that's pretty cliche. We get brother and sister bickering, we get bad boyfriends, we get reunions, and we get a lot of idiocy. So the episode starts off and it's Soji and Romulan boy in bed, and there is an overabundance of sex in this series, but not good sex, just like implied creepy sex.
I mean, there's a lot of like weird sex stuff in Star Trek in general, but
yeah, there's weird stuff.
A lot of that feels like
a lot of this in this one just feels like it's there to be there.
Yeah,
it doesn't always feel like it's. I don't mind a sex scene if it like supports something bigger or grandiose, but like, or builds a connection, like that is the peak of something it leads to. Here it's just kind of there.
It's there to draw in like the Game of Thrones crowd, practically.
It sure does feel like, and I put here in quotations. They had a case of the space hornies, and it just. I don't understand. I know Soji is an android, I guess, and a synth, and apparently synths are incredibly stupid for how smart they are. Because I don't understand her need to be with this Romulan or how this even works. And I don't mean from a biological point of view. I'm meaning from like a logistical point of view of like, this guy is up to something shady as fuck, knows everything about you, and is trying to extract information from you, and you just keep sleeping with him because it's fun.
But he's hot and British.
That's all I can. That's all. It's the case of the space hornies. That's all this. Like, this guy's clearly playing me. He knows more about me. I don't know even his real name, but I'm just, I'm gonna let him diddle me just because. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I laugh every time I hear it. I don't think they actually said his name until this episode.
You're probably absolutely right. I don't remember that at all.
But every time I hear his name, I laugh because I knew like 3 Nareks. Yeah, because I grew up in fucking Glendale.
that makes sense.
Which is full of Armenian people.
And it's also a lot of the names here in this series do feel like they're inspired or pulled from other episodes of Star Trek in some way. Well, and it seems very confusing to me. Like when he says Narek or something, I'm like, I swear to God, I've heard it's not like a name that goes, ooh, you're connected to him now forever, right? No. It's not like Spock. It's not like Picard. It's like it's Narek, and you think in your head, wait a second. I'm sure there's been a Narek. Who was the name of the captain of the Narada from the reboot series? Eric Bana?
Yeah.
It feels like one of them is the Narek. Like, already named. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels...
possible because, do you remember what the name of Vulcan martial arts is?
Oh, God. What's that? Oh, it's slipping on my tongue. Tell me.
I know it because it's also really funny in the same way to me. Susmana.
Susmana.
And that's a phrase in Armenian as well. I don't remember what it is.
Really?
Yes. That was something that like I forget which person working on Enterprise, but they snuck that in as sort of a joke, and they called it that. And most people don't realize it because Armenian is super obscure for everybody.
Funny, unless you live in Glendale.
Unless you live in Glendale, and
I used to love it. That's so hilarious.
Like the other thing about that is like almost anybody that gets out of Glendale fucking hates it.
It's an interesting place for sure. I love going through there and hanging out sometimes. So this episode felt like the opening episode again, really long and slow. It just felt like things wanted to connect but never did. I know a lot of people I've read and were saying that, that this was like a big, huge, cool detour after the reveal of 7 of 9 last week and everything that was happened and blowing up. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I kind of get that if we were dealing with a monster of the week sort of show.
Yeah, pew pew shoot bangs.
Yes, if we were dealing with Star Trek, sure, you could have 2 or 3 episodes in a row where literally not even a phaser is fire, and then
I just got through watching like the first 2 seasons of Next Gen.
Yes,
and there's so many episodes where like nothing
happens, right? And then there's
like it's all character drama,
and you move on, and that's understandable in that type of show. But when you're trying to develop stuff and you just break away like this, it's a whiplash, right? I know a lot of people like 7 of 9 coming in and shooting everyone and killing everyone and murdering and becoming the worst possible thing ever.
Yeah.
And I read a piece a couple days ago that just said, why Picard's most violent moment is exactly what like 7 needed, and I just puked in my mouth.
Oh, I saw those and I wanted to just put my head through.
Threw in my mouth. Granted, God. I was sick, but I threw up in my mouth. Like it exacerbated my disease and put me closer to death. When that's what she needed. And so
what she needed is to not be 7 of 9 at all anymore.
And so great. We get here and it kind of goes back to a little bit of nothing. And after our introduction of the Space Hornies, which always ends the same. Every time these two have slept together, this series so far has ended the same.
I sort of remembered something, but I don't really remember.
She sort of remembers something.
I had a nightmare and I don't really remember why.
They always leave in an argument.
Yeah.
And then they always leave the door and give each other like the lovey eyes, and nobody on this goddamn station questions anything. Nobody questions that a Tal Shiar apparently, and granted, we haven't even heard the name of the super secret Tal Shiar since episode 2.
Yeah, the Zadvash.
They're just saying everyone's Tal Shiar, and I am starting to like, did they forget? Like, what's happening?
How could you not forget?
How could you not forget? I've already forgotten. And so it always ends the same. And then they walk around a cube where, assumingly, the Tal Shiar doesn't control all this entire cube, because the Tal Shiar is probably clearly in ruins, if you know anything about Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right? I don't doubt that they're still around doing shady shit, because shady people do that all the time in the real world. Yeah. But you got your asses nearly wiped out in the Dominion War. Literally, the heads of the Tal Shiar were wiped out. Going through the wormhole in that attack. And then
in Nemesis, all of the Romulan senators got wiped out. The
senators are wiped out, and
so
you had to deal with
that one guy from, what was it, episode 4 or 5?
Was even a list. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So you had the Dominion War that nearly destroyed you, like it did everyone, right? Mm-hmm. But it really did a number on the Cardassians and the Romulans, because that was the episode arc of them going over to get fucked, like they're dead. Then you have the Riemann uprising in Nemesis, right, that happens. So they're dealing with that, and the entire Senate,
which is almost entirely because they wanted to make a clone of Picard to sub him in.
Absolutely, and then they got bored and moved on. I love the explanation in that film. It's like, yeah, we made a perfect clone of Picard, and then we figured lazy.
It wasn't going to work out.
And I think her reasoning is great. It's just like everything in Romulan, the Senate changes and a new power comes in. I'm like, fuck you.
Well, I mean, the Dominion War probably changed the plan too.
So that was the second thing. And then the Romulan supernova, the Hoba system blew up and destroyed the planet.
Fucking stupid.
Any one of those things would have been enough to destabilize the Romulan people. 3 of those things in the 10-year period, you're not controlling a cube as a Tal Shiar. So I'm assuming
that's a massive disaster.
Yes, I'm assuming this is in Romulan space and is controlled by Romulans, because it broke down, in Romulan space.
Well, he has to get diplomatic credentials to go.
The idea of that cube being there, I can totally agree with, because I would assume that would be the case somewhere in the galaxy, right? Even though in the shows and in the movies we just see him blowing the fuck up. We've seen the idea of cubes falling apart a lot in Voyager.
Or getting disconnected,
Some ship, same reason they found Hugh and the rest of them. I get that. What I don't get is a Tal Shiar apparently running this whole operation, which I don't believe. I do believe it's the regular Romulan, whatever's left of them, because they're hiring regular people. Not a very Tal Shiar move. But this guy's just walking around the entire station with full access to everything, even though it's an independent project because Hugh is there and he's a Federation citizen. That's the only explanation he gives us. Right? He's not a bad guy. He just says, well, I'm a Federation citizen. I can leave whenever I want. What the fuck does that mean? Who gives a shit?
I really should have taken notes, because I've forgotten so much of this over the course of 5 days. But
that's the only thing he justifies for him being there, and that the Borg are I get that he's trying to help. It didn't make a lot of sense early on, because remember we had the same conversation.
I can understand him wanting to help because they're also going through the same thing
drones,
I went through.
He's the only one experienced probably in something like this.
Other than
you know what
7,
I mean?
9.
Other than the 7, you would assume they'd be working together, but we already talked about her goddamn destruction. So it makes sense that he wants to help Borg survivors adapt. Mm-hmm. And literally, when he's on the ship and Picard meets him, they show good work being done here.
Yeah.
And
they're all scarred up like crazy.
They're all
7 of 9 wasn't, and she had
way
a
overblown.
Huge ocular implant and
guy doesn't have an eye and he's all happy about it. I'm like, this is Star Trek in the modern age. Geordi has a visor and he has his eyes fixed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Dr. Pulaski actually offers to regenerate his occipital nerve and replicate new eyes for him.
So I mean, we're literally just.
Well, what's the chance of it failing? And he's like,
they can do that in this generation of Star Trek. Yeah. They can absolutely do this, but they don't, because they're trying to pin some weird allegory or connection to Endless Wars.
No, they're trying to be edgy.
It's a thing of we're going to look brutal and tough like Game of Thrones, but also it's hey, look at these people, war is hell and brutal. It's bullshit, right? They can totally fix them. But I get why Hugh is there. It makes perfect sense that he wants to help. But we didn't understand his reasoning to be there this entire series. Romulans are bad. Clearly, these ones are bad. We didn't understand Soji's reason for being there. Maddox just sends her there because, right? He didn't give it. He didn't say anything else. It doesn't make any sense. But Hugh is only, when they meet Picard, the only thing he says is, I'm a citizen of the Federation. I can leave anytime I want, when he's talking about the Borg drones that are being rehabilitated. And that's it. Who gives a fuck if you're a citizen of Starfleet if this is a Romulan-controlled cube in Romulan space?
Yeah, they're not going to let you leave.
They're not going to let you leave or show up. Who gives a fuck? So that's an issue we'll get back to. But we jump back to the beginning, right after the Space Hornies, we move into Aggie. And the only question I have is and even the most loving reviews of this episode on just jerk you off websites that want free screeners and stuff.
Oh god, I've seen those all over.
Are just, even they have the question of, how does Aggie get away with murder? They'll forgive a lot of stuff, but even their stupidity will go, hey, did she? I've read 2 or 3 of them that are not even connected and they're jerking each other off. But even they say did she delete the EMH? He was there. He knows what happened.
The EMH only has 2 megs of RAM. He forgets everything every time he's shut off. That's the only explanation.
I don't mind when we're giving creative information or ideas for someone doing something interesting, right? Or some sort of deception. And you can disregard it because it's the future, right? You know what I mean? Oh, well, and Star Trek is known for this. Oh, future's tech or technobabble, right? When something is happening, they can say it, and you can think in your head that you can disbelieve it, but it's that notion of it oh, it's the future. I don't know what any of that means. I get it.
That's the funny thing. They actually used to have science advisors.
They used to have science advisors.
The entire basis for warp drive is an LQB area drive, which is something that is theoretically extant. It's just that we don't know how to make it work, and even if we did, we don't have enough power to run.
Yes, and so there has always been explanations for things. Not always good, not always accurate, but there was an in-universe explanation of why they could get away with something. There is no explanation why she got away with killing Maddox. The EMH was there. Clearly, we know there's cameras everywhere. There's holographic projectors everywhere. And it's issues like this in sci-fi films that make me wonder if it's some future where nothing makes sense. Because in 2020, right, when a patient is hooked up and crashes and no one is around, what happens? The blue cart comes in, right? Yeah. And the alarms go off everywhere on that floor of the hospital. You put on any hospital show, any ER show, any doctor show, and someone will be in a room by themselves or maybe with a nurse, and they start crashing and flatlining, and the alarms go buzzing.
That is the emergency team runs in.
That is a real thing. Happened? When we are more competent in 2020 than they are hundreds of years from now, it makes no sense for her to get away with it. Now, if it was a small line or a small scene, and maybe we'll get this later, who the fuck knows, of her deleting the EMH or rewrite something.
Clearing the cache.
Right. She just says, a computer, clear out the EMH for the last 5 minutes, right? Clear out the memory.
Whatever logs might be there. Yeah.
I would still complain saying, how the fuck does she have that access, right?
Especially when she was freaking out over running a fucking teleporter.
Absolutely. But I would at least be able to suspend my disbelief in that moment going, okay, she did something. It makes natural sense for her to try to do something. Right. And then you've already built yourself a line in that script for later. You've left a loose thread. Oh, she fucked with the EMH. Maybe they don't ever touch it and she never gets caught. Or later down the line, they go through the logs and they catch that someone messed with it. Boom, you have another angle. You know what I mean? You're building these stories and you're leaving these threads that can be pulled at a later date. Right now, it's just hey, I'm bad now. I'm going to kill you. You're dead.
It's a free
none of that makes any sense to me.
No.
And it was probably one of the most annoying things of this episode. Because right after that, we know she killed Maddox, and now we just had a case of the space hornies with the robot and Romulan, which is there. I just gave CBS another spin-off show. There you go.
Oh, there's a good one. Yeah.
We get another sex scene or implied sex scene between Aggie and the captain for no reason. For no reason. Like, I know he's cool captain guy, and he's gonna space bang like Kirk. Whatever, I don't mind it. He's ex-Starfleet. But none of this makes sense in Aggie's current arc.
I mean, he could have sex with someone who didn't just murder somebody, but...
She has gone from this scared little person within an episode to being a cold-blooded killer and a seducer of men. Just like hardcore. And if she was an inside agent, I get it. But clearly the first 2 episodes show that she wasn't. And this turn only comes about after she talks to the Commodore. And even Aggie says in the episode, they showed me things. Right? Mm-hmm. They didn't train her. They didn't bring her up to be an insider at Maddox's lab. They showed her something between her jumping on the ship and talking with the Commodore and going to Picard. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, she got activated too, apparently. And now she's this badass infiltrator. And I hate it. And that's within the first 10 minutes. We're just like sex scene. That's it.
And we haven't even gotten to the part that just really kind of chafed my ass.
We haven't even begun to move into this. So after that, yeah. And I wrote here in my notes, like sensors, cameras, EMH. How the fuck did she get away with it? None of that is answered. The holograms are just sort of there when they need them. Right. If this was actually the Doctor, and we have reference for this. I don't have reference for the ENH, the navigation, or the architect guy, or any of that. But we have a good understanding of how the emergency medical holograms work, because there was one on Voyager for all those years.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a baseline program. It probably only got better, even though it turned into anti-Dick, but they only probably got better. Right? So this EMH, could you imagine...
That episode, man,
in Voyager,
I'm surprised they got through an entire episode without Andy Dick like exploding.
Yeah, he did really well. I would love to see the behind the scenes on that and see what happened.
It's a fucking miracle they got through.
But we understand how the EMH works, and he is still programmed to be a doctor. Yeah. And that Hippocratic oath or whatever they have in the future is still there.
And so, for the most part, he can supersede orders.
He can supersede orders, even if he's stuck in his, the medical lab or area before he got his little patch thingy or his mobile transmitter. He could still activate whenever he wanted. You could shut him off, but he would come back, right? Yeah. He would come back in another room or something.
If he was pissed off enough, he would keep coming back every time you shut him off.
And if you did shut him off, I believe there were some times early on where they would shut the Doctor down or prevent him, from accessing when they're doing secret stuff. He would still know about it when he came back.
Mm-hmm. Because it's happening in his sick bay.
Right. It's happening in his sick bay. He's still in the computer, right? And he sees everything that's happening.
Monitoring everything.
Yeah. So you can only shut him down from being around. He will come back. This EMH never comes back. That was just it.
Yeah.
That was just fucking it. And I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate it. And I hate it. And I hate it. And I just put here more sexy time. And in between that, we come to learn that Picard starts having some of those flashbacks like he had only one time in First Contact.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But he has
his
like...
infamous little speech.
Yes.
They strike here and we fall back.
Blah, 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 blah. And then we get images of like the film.
I must be drawn here.
And we get
further.
Images of him. And they do the one thing, and I praised this early on in the series, where they kind of superimpose the faces. Remember I talked about this? Like, ooh, they're kind of leading on to something.
Yeah,
they did it again.
Hitting the nail on the head too
much. It felt a little too forced this time with the Locutus image that he was swiping through.
Yeah.
And one swipe didn't work. That's just a technical error. I won't even get into it. He missed one swipe. Yeah, if you look at one swipe, nothing happens, and then it blows up the picture. Like he's trying to pinch and zoom. Not his fault, but that's just an editing issue.
That's Iron Man tech for you.
Yes. And then it superimposes on his face and he starts touching himself. I'm just like, this is too much. This is too much. Yes, Picard has issues after not being a Borg, right?
Uh-huh.
Other people don't as much, but let's just give the benefit of the doubt that other people, like let's say Voyager crew, let's say Icheb, and let's say other people that have been assimilated weren't as special, right? They weren't Locutus of Borg. They were just a drone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can say maybe he's got something different because, as it was stated in the film, like he was connected to the Queen and she misses, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I love First Contact is the best of the TNG films, but it also ruined the Borg by introducing a Queen. It brought up too many questions that don't make sense. They should have just left it without it. But still, we get a flashback of that. Maybe he had a connection.
I mean, I think the thought process with the Queen was like bees and ants and stuff. But...
Yes, and that's still stupid. Because it takes away that threat of the Borg, of this unending threat. Because, oh shit, well, why don't we just kill the Queen? Because that's what we do in every science fiction film. Or every science fiction story. Oh, crazy bugs? Oh, let's kill the Queen. Oh, and then all the drones and everything won't work anymore.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my... Yes, there you go. And so, with her introduction, I felt the Borg were impacted. Now, there are some really cool fan theories about how the Borg Queen wasn't always around and came into play when Q threw the Enterprise towards the Borg.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because
just watched that episode.
Yeah, there's historical records and stuff, and that the Borg may have been here a lot earlier, and this and that. But the Borg knew of Earth and were heading out to inspect this, and Q throws them out to the Borg, and the Borg don't give a shit about the humans. Right? Remember, they go after the Enterprise ship,
and they don't give a shit until you start fighting with them.
But in what the fans kind of think, and I kind of support this too a little bit. I don't mind it. Is that they were inspecting the Enterprise because it shouldn't have been out there at that time.
Oh, of course it shouldn't have been.
They knew of this starship, right, of Earth or something a little bit, and realized that these people shouldn't be out here. So they started taking apart the ship to wonder what the fuck happened. Right? We don't care about the people. We care about the technology at that point. Right? Yeah. Up until that point, I don't think the Borg had assimilated tons and tons of people. That came about later and in Voyager stuff. They just kind of destroyed and took technology and moved on.
You know what they're going to do with this, right?
What?
I sent you over Messenger like a week ago or something. Rich Evans from Red Letter Media said something in their review of episodes 2 and 3 that I'm like, that is so stupid. They're going to do it. The Romulans created the Borg.
There's going to be something super stupid.
It's coming. I could feel it. I can feel it.
And why the simulation doesn't work quite right? Because they're, but
it's gonna suck.
They've been fucking with, even in Star Trek, they've been fucking with things that are good, and downplaying them, right? Yeah. And so the idea was that they wanted a ship because clearly their warp technology has to be better than our transwarp if they can fucking get from there to here in an instant, right? And then when Q sends them back, that confirms them, oh my God, they can do this, but our technology, we didn't get anything from the Enterprise that shows that they can do this. So it must be the people. So then they started assimilating people.
Yeah.
Right? Then they started assimilating cultures because the technology that Earth had, they couldn't find it. And so they destroyed the Borg in that way. And here we just get more and more destruction of that kind. And I noted here that just says Picard just hates the Borg now.
Yeah, that's why I said we're getting First Contact.
Yes,
Picard.
And First Contact wasn't bad because it was in the moment of what was happening.
Yeah.
Right?
And it has some legitimately great moments, like the bit with Zephram. The bits with Zephram Cochrane are great in that movie. I love the bit with Geordi where he's like talking to him about going to Zephram Cochrane High School. They had a statue, and you're standing there and you're reaching out to the stars like this.
And he's just like, I'm so over this. I'm out of here to drink.
I need to drink.
But if you see Starfleet as like a military organization, and they were becoming more of that in the films because of net necessity, they had been stagnant up until
the Borg, and you have all this shit happening.
And so you have the Sovereign, which is a military vessel. Picard acting like a military commander on his ship and like ignoring crew, like picking out the cortical things and saying, and the girl saying like, he was one of yours. And he's like, yes, it was Ensign so-and-so. blah blah blah.
Ensign Hawk, right? Yeah, that's it. Had to have been.
And they both make good points in that scene. She's like, hey, these are still human beings, right?
I saw your face when you were blowing them away. You loved it.
And he's saying, the line must be drawn here because he's going from a militaristic. He knows who the Borg is. She's going from like, these are still humans and your people, blah blah blah. So they both make good points, and that works. In this case, it just makes Picard seem like an asshole.
Because at this point, he should know better.
Because this isn't who he ever was. He would put the Enterprise, the Enterprise D, the Galaxy class vessel, the pride of the Federation, right?
Thousands of people, most of which are families.
He would put them in danger intentionally if it might risk or might produce an outcome that is favorable to the greater good.
Specifically a diplomatic outcome.
Yes, he will place his crew, his ship in danger if it bettered the chance of spreading the ideas of the Federation. We don't shoot first, all these sorts of things that just say we are good. We're going to try things, right? We do them, because this is what we do. This is who we are. It makes it, that human spirit, like we're better than this. That was the idea. And and Picard never hated other races or cultures or people ever. That was like a Kirk thing with the Klingons because of his son, right? And it was more Wild West.
And that was also movie Kirk. So
that was always movie Kirk, which wasn't the ideas of, Gene Roddenberry at the time.
Like I forget the name of the episode, but the one where they're on that planet trying to disrupt Klingon shit. And they're actually just sitting there talking. Like, we're not so different. We have similar ideals, but
movie
we're not odds.
Movie Star Trek is very different than TV Star Trek. Was very different than TV Star Trek because it was handled by more people. I wouldn't say other people, but more people.
And also the format of a movie, it doesn't lend itself to
these extended,
common for a Star Trek episode.
Right. And you also have a studio involved now as opposed to just the TV side of things. So it was always a little bit different. But Picard, even in those films, never saw the Borg like that other than they're on my ship. I need to get them off. We got to kill them all, which is the correct course of action for them at the time. That's all you could do.
Even Guinan's like, no, you just need to fight them as hard as you fucking can.
And then from the other movies continued, we never saw any indication that the Borg were in his head to the extent they are in Picard.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he's older, whatever, but he seems very hateful. And I just have here in my notes, like, he notes that they're the Borg. They don't change. That was the stinger for me for this whole idea of Picard and the Borg. They don't change. And I just wrote under there, what about Hugh and his friends? They totally change. What about 7 of 9 that you've just been hanging out with, who shows that they change? And even if you just say it as a like a mechanical level, they've still adapted and changed and done stuff. You clearly, at this point in time, you have read all the reports from Admiral Janeway of what the Borg do, how they interact, and how different, the
lengths they went to try and get one fucking ship.
Right, exactly. And you have more experience with like Icheb and the rest of them. Like, you have a history there where they change. They're simply drones. They don't have a choice. And he just seems like an asshole that hates the Borg for no other reason that they turned him into something. That's it. And it just it bugged me.
So I mean, the Borg stuff is like the furthest extent before this show that they really got into like body horror, because it's all this like crazy shit getting bolted and replaced.
Yeah, it was their version of like body horror, which was cool. It was interesting, and we kind of saw it with a budget now.
It's not like every other series that does it, where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna really up the like gore porn here.
Yeah. It really did feel like when they were showing the Borg's parts and people.
It's an unearthly, unnatural thing.
It felt like body horror, but it also felt like you would see in a military war or something. They kind of built it in that kind of style, and it was pretty horrific,
dispassionate and
just medical and like then there's people trying to help. I get it. So we get this just like, and look, I want to preface that we open with the space hornies, right?
Yeah.
We go to Picard hating the Borg, and then we go back to more sexy time on the ship.
Yeah.
And so Picard is like buffered by the sexy time stuff. And this is where I think the pacing felt really slow to me and boring, because we have just so many disjointed things going on at once. Like, if you want to do this Borg thing that Picard hates them and it's really weighing on him, maybe don't sandwich it in between space boobs. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
maybe not, because then it just like I don't get where we're going, and I have like
insane mood whiplash.
Yes, yeah. I'm like, ooh, okay, yeah, cool. Hot people sleeping together, whatever. I'm not thinking, oh, okay, really, really moving forward with this case of Borg and how he's been. Oh shit, look, more space boobs. I just, it feels very disjointed. So
yeah,
once we're done with more space sex, we get back to more gross stuff, because now we get the Romulan kids again with their incest angle. So while not, I say technically yes, more sexy time, I guess, if you're into that, but I'm not. So I don't consider it, but it's more weird, gross sex stuff, like future sex stuff. And then I just put in quotes here, the show is sort of gross. Like, there's just an ickiness to it. You know what I mean? Like, just not, and I'm not even talking now just the sex, just like what they're doing to things. It feels dirty and wrong. And then from there, we come to Raffi.
Oh, this is it.
Who is now just a full-blown alcoholic druggie again. I understand the emotional impact of seeing your child again and them essentially saying, leave us alone. I get it. I get it. It's hard. But now all of a sudden she's full-blown drug addict again. Really rubbed me the wrong way. Especially in the future where they live. Really rubbed me the wrong way. Because she just comes out drunk and smoking her vape weed and just full blown
Orion Jewel.
Yes, and the assumption is that she was doing all this while in Starfleet, which still pisses me off. It pisses me off. Like, you would never believe that she was just a functionally drug addict and Picard knew about it. Everyone knew about it and just let it happen.
Season 1 episode of Next Gen where they deal with this shit.
Yes.
The Felicium guys.
Yes.
Where you have the one group that's obviously drug dealers.
Yes, you have drug dealers, always bad. But the Federation has always gone beyond that. That's what we're always told, that they're better than this. And maybe if you are like a pilot in a freighter pilot, right, on the outskirts or something. Maybe if you lived on a colony world or something, they could have drug problems.
22nd century, maybe.
Where maybe they've showed that, maybe I'm sure some episodes have touched on that, but the core of the Federation is beyond that. And I don't think any Starfleet officer in any series was shown to be a drug addict or alcoholic during their time in a uniform.
I can't think of one.
There might be. I could be wrong because there's a whole lot of Star Trek, but I don't think that is the case. And it's always them talking to someone else, maybe in another colony or something, saying, "Hey, you're better than this. You can do better. We'll fix you." Here, she's just a drunk, and it's really disappointing because there's no need for it. There could have been written much better to show that emotional disconnect from her son, right? And that new family that would bring her down into some dark place, as opposed to this. And not only that, but she just calls her buddy in Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where I get to where I hate this episode. She calls her friend to ask for a favor. And I'm like, okay, cool. You're going to need some help, I guess. You need, we already know they're going to the cube. They need some favors. She asks her friend, who is, I believe, a commander or captain. I think does she have 4 pips or 3?
I don't remember. And
whatever the case may be, it's either commander or captain. I'm going to say commander to be safe. But it has to be someone high up, though.
Ships.
It has to be someone high up to get this credentials. But she's at Starfleet Command somewhere. And she asks for permission to grant Picard 24-hour diplomatic papers, essentially.
Credentials.
Credentials or papers like you would here in today's, to enter the Borg sphere, the Borg reclamation sphere, whatever the project is in Romulan space.
The artifact.
The artifact. I've got
I hate that name.
A whole lot of issues with this. A whole lot of issues with this. One, why do they need credentials to get on a Romulan artifact? Two, because Romulans. Two, why would anyone grant Picard papers to go on to the artifact? He's already persona non grata in Starfleet. The heads already want his head. That's not something that's just going to be blown away, right? Hey, no. The Commodore knows Picard left to go find the other one. Any word of Picard doing anything would get routed back to them and be like, fuck that. No, don't just say no. This whole series would have ended. Just be like, nah, sorry.
It's just
3. Sorry. Why the fuck is there diplomatic papers to get onto a cube in Romulan space? I know that was point 1, but I'm going to round back to that because it makes no goddamn sense.
Because Romulans.
And then she just grants it on the whim. I'll transport your papers simply because they're already on their way there. And then she says, Raffi, don't ever talk to me again. Peace out. And it's just...
This is the part that really got me.
Go for it.
Like, Picard, bravo!
Claps like a piece of shit.
What an asshole.
And nobody else does.
It's right? Like she just delivered a fucking Shakespearean soliloquy.
Like Rios gives like a smile like, I'm impressed, and the rest of the people are just like, whoa, that was cool.
I'm amazed. But
But he knows who she is. He knows that she just lost someone important to her. That was
like
probably
possibly the last person that would ever talk to her or be friends with her.
Her only friend. She just burnt that bridge. She is now clearly on drugs and pissed drunk because she had to be helped out of there. And Picard claps like
an asshole. Yeah,
good job. It felt like the most condescending thing.
Like when a waitress drops an entire tray of glasses.
Yes. And like Chili's, and everyone claps. Whoa, yay! You fucked up. Check, clap, clap, clap. You're a fuck up. Oh, somebody's getting a free dinner. And it showed me that they don't have any understanding of who this person is, right? And it's not just because he clapping is something stupid. It is clearly something stupid. It's not something Picard would ever have done, ever, and it's not something his character would ever be capable of. When someone that he loves or cares about is in pain, to clap about it, it just seems real dirty. It seems real dirty. It seems like a Captain Kirk movie sort of move.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Just an asshole.
You mean a William Shatner move?
Yes. Just a general William Shatner move. But none of that, it didn't feel Picardy. Now, I wouldn't have cared if someone else clapped, right? If Rios clapped because he's that cool captain, right? That only kind of knows people, I'd be like, that would make sense. He wants to get in there safely, right? Cool. Or if Aggie clapped because she was a weirdo and is like a dork, she's like, haha, yay.
This just reminded me of something. I was watching some video and they're talking about, and the guy was like talking about Generations. Did you know that William Shatner wrote like 3 or 4 follow-up novels to Generations?
Oh yeah, I read one. It was bad. The Romulans come
and then they collaborate with the Borg
to clone him. Yeah,
to bring him back.
Yeah. Oh no, I couldn't finish it. They take his body from the rocks, which apparently Starfleet just totally left there and forgot about and didn't put any.
But it struck me because it's Romulans and Borg.
Oh yeah, like, deep in Federation space.
Why?
Why did you need the Borg?
This is all circling back to this shit.
This is all stolen from just second-rate shit. But it's bad. So we're not even halfway through this. This is probably about the halfway.
10 minutes.
Maybe 15, 20 minutes in. And it's just bad. Like it's just bad.
It's
This
so
is
far off the
not.
mark.
Yes, it's not like, again, it's not bad in the way it's like looks or is shot. It's
If
just
this didn't have the words Star Trek anywhere in the
and you're
title,
gonna
or
hear us bring this
Picard,
up every single time, but it's
every
just
single time.
it's just bad. So this is, I have it here. This is all pretty much unexcusable stuff in terms of what the hell is happening to me personally. But the next part, we get into just some stupid Star Trek stuff that makes no sense. And I'm sitting here. I know maybe because I'm a writer, I think a little bit more about this stuff. But I think of it as like, well, how would I do things if I were there in terms of my small 2020 brain? And the next part, we see Soji back in her room, clearly freaking out about her dreams. And she freaks out because she starts scanning her paperwork in her room.
First, she gets told, "Oh, all of your
yes.
calls to your mom only last 70 seconds."
Yes, we get a quick thing
then she falls asleep afterwards,
and that ties into this. Like, your calls only last 70 something seconds. Do you fall asleep a lot? Because she says, "No, I usually fall asleep." That part didn't bother me too much, but it shows a lack of.
I mean, it's dumb.
It shows a lack of smart writing, and also something a very smart person in that world, like a Maddox, would never do. And what I mean by that is she goes back to her room to be like, that can't be true. She starts falling asleep until she like stabs herself, right, to wake up.
Yeah.
And figure things out.
Then
she starts scanning her things. God, have you ever seen the film The Talking Cat, or like My Talking Cat, like one of the worst films ever?
No, I haven't.
Look up the review online of like My Talking Cat. I forget who does it. Maybe Your Movie Sucks or someone does it. But there's a scene in there where the dad is a like high-end web developer who built a web page and sold a web page and retires to become rich. It's really stupid. But he's going on a date, right, with someone for the first time. And
God,
so
all I'm getting is like apps.
Oh God, probably. Oh, you're getting a talking tomcat. No, you just look for it on YouTube later and find the review, Mike Talking Cat or something. But he starts scanning clothes, right, to enter into his really smart computer program to tell him what's the best thing to wear. And what they're doing is scanning with one of those book lights that you get at the dollar store that light up.
Oh yeah,
right. And so it just goes scanned in, and that's the first thing that I realized. I'm like, this is dumb. This is like stupid the way you're scanning it in. But the real kicker is
they have like things that let you scan documents into like a
yeah, they've got so much better things. It's literally just a light thing. But what really sets me off about this is that everything starts coming up 37 months. Scanned 37 months, 37 months, 37 months, 37 months, 37 months, 37 months. You've been alive for 37 months. And I just have here just why? Why would you create outside material that's also 37? I get that she's 37 months, right? You can't really do much about that if you went into it like a deep scan. I get it.
Well, I mean, none of this shit existed before.
Yeah. So why would you do anything else at 37 months? And I just wrote here, like, why not just mix the ages?
Yeah.
You're clearly creating stuff. You have the technology to beat a stupid little scanner. Why don't you create stuff that's a couple years old or however old she is? Hey, this paper reads as, 29 years old or something. This paper reads as only 15 years old. This photo reads as 12 years old, right? To kind of, a smart person would do that when creating a synthetic life like this that you don't want to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Well, here's where my brain went with this. How much of this is replicated in the first place?
Yeah.
I mean, it's only going to be as old as like the replication would be.
The idea is that
why would it even matter?
Everything was done at the same time. Like, it raises too many questions. And so she freaks out, and I put here, she runs to her Romulan boyfriend first. That's the first place she runs to. The one that is clearly trying to extract information from her, the guy that's being shady. You don't go to any of your friends that you may have fake had My first instinct, if I found out that maybe I wasn't real, wouldn't be to the girlfriend I just met 2 or 3 weeks ago. It would be to call my mom. Oh, this is making me sleep. Something's fucked up. How about I call my sister or another family member?
Well, she's dead, so.
Yeah, but she doesn't know it.
Yet.
She's totally unaware of that. We'll find out later, but she's totally unaware of this. So don't you think it's like, oh, fuck, I'm not real? This mom videos are, I need to call my sister. I have the same medal as her. I know I have a sister. I should call her. Maybe some friends that I remember from college that I just graduated at, apparently. Right? Mm-hmm. Not like run directly to your new boyfriend that's just going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of the episode, we jump back between Soji and we jump back between Picard, who is now on the Borg sphere or the Borg cube.
Yeah.
Who got through with no problems. Not nary a thread went wrong. No question or care that these Romulans, remember, are looking at the person that basically let them die and all their friends and family die. Please just come on board because you got some papers. Everything is A-okay. And so this is where he gets those flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like how those flashbacks end because he falls down, right? Mm-hmm. And then he starts being grabbed by Borg. And it's intercut with like scenes of him actually being held or Borg around him.
Yeah.
To snapping out of it and actually being held by former drones. But Hugh is there.
We didn't want you to fall.
Yeah, and Hugh comes in and is like, they just didn't want you to fall. And I was like, oh.
It's a Borg cube. It's not OSHA compliant.
Yeah, it's not OSHA, which is, I've always thought that's hilarious. Probably they just didn't give a shit because there's so many drones, but it's just hilarious.
Well, they didn't give a shit because there's so many drones, and also they always walk on.
Yes, and they're always perfect anyways.
Yeah.
So they pick him up, and I was like, that's the first cool thing that this episode has done. Yeah. Like how they integrate. And again, has nothing to do really with the writing too much. It has to do with the cinematography and how that kind of ties in together. It works really well. So then Hugh, they have a nice moment. They hug, which is cool. And then Hugh shows them around the cube. Hey, this is what we're doing here. This is how I'm here. He makes a stupid, I'm a citizen of the Federation bullshit.
Which doesn't matter because
which doesn't matter because you're not in the Federation. You know, he could have, it doesn't matter who he's a citizen of. He could have said, hey, the Romulans had this cube and they invited me as their guest because of who I was. That would have made more sense to me in terms of story. Like, I don't give a shit that they're not going to let you leave just because you're a citizen of the Federation. You're an idiot.
No.
At least say, oh no, they hired me to run this facility. And then you could have the ploy of,
well, when I want.
I can quit when I want. That's what he should have said. And then the Romulans go, you can't quit, because you were never an employee. We were always in control. You could have that sort of dynamic, right? He thought one thing, they thought another.
We have altered the deal. Pray we do not alter it any.
As opposed to just being like, no, dude, I can just peace out whenever I want.
Yeah.
And so Picard makes this.
But
and this is where I messaged you when we were talking. And Picard says, how can you unassimilate all these people? It's like, how could you could de-assimilate on this scale? And I don't understand what that means because we've only probably seen 7 or 8 Borg drones at this point, right? In a very small place. You could assume that it's happening everywhere, but I messaged you this in a huff while you were playing, and I just said, dude, they've been unassimilating people fucking since you were around.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker.
He was the first.
Here's the kicker. He was the first, and also happened like the first time the Borg came to fuck you up after you found them.
Yeah.
They undid you. Totally cool.
100%.
First time they came around.
Perfect. No scars, no like crazy anything.
Right. And I get it from a TV point of view. You can't really, whatever, makeup and everything. They literally undid you the first time. The Federation's technology with Crusher there was so good that they could pull all that stuff out from you.
Well, I mean, she was the head of Starfleet Medical for an entire season.
They could fix you perfectly. And then we saw it later. We saw Voyager and 7 of 9, who was 100% Borg and has been essentially raised as a Borg because she was
Yes.
captured as what, like 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah,
So you may have only been a Borg as Locutus for, granted, let's say maybe a couple of weeks.
month.
Yeah, let's say a couple of weeks. Seven was there for 25 or so years.
Yeah.
And they still pulled almost everything out.
They left what they needed to leave in so that she could function.
Right. They couldn't pull everything out because it was so integrated into her. And it made sense because she'd been there so long. And that was a holographic doctor that did that.
Yeah.
Right. He wasn't like experimenting on something brand new. He only had the files of TNG to go off of, and he still managed to it. And so we've moved on from there because he
did it to the entire bridge crew practically.
Yes, he did it to the kids later, and they were almost perfect, right? Each have also had a head thing and a little bit.
Yeah.
But then he did it to the entire bridge crew, figuring out the nanites and how all that stuff worked. We've been able to assimilate mass groups of people within a single episode.
Yeah, we've been able to de-assimilate them.
And yes, de-assimilate. And I yelled to you about that. I was just like, they totally did that for the entire bridge crew when they went undercover as Borg.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh shit, they totally did. What he says doesn't makes sense if it wasn't Captain Picard.
Yeah.
If it was anyone else who had not dealt with the Borg directly, had never been assimilated, and maybe wasn't a captain at the time of this stuff was going on, and might not have the information, right? He might be like, hey, dude, this is a huge setup you got here.
If they weren't on the Enterprise D or if they weren't on Voyager, yeah, sure.
Yes. And so I'm like, that's dumb. But then we get to the point where the show gets just totally Middle-earth stupid. And again, I also mentioned to you while you were doing stuff. We then go on a Romulan spirit walk. And I put in quotations, it's literally just walking.
Yep.
It's the dumbest thing.
I told you that it was just walking. Like I was like, how did you like their meditation? It's just walking around a room.
It's just, they have a special room built on the cube for Romulan meditation that requires you to take your shoes off. And I'm going into this thinking, oh, cool. We're going to do like the Romulan version of the mind meld, something super secret that we haven't seen before. Right? Because in my head, that would make logical sense, and it'd also be cool. Because if you know anything about Star Trek, you know the Romulans and the Vulcans were one, and then they split. And before that split, we know that the mind meld thing was still a thing. So if the Vulcans have it, if you were a TNG fan or just a Star Trek fan in general, you'd be like, hey, don't you think the Romulans would probably have their own version of it? Only because they're bad guys, it would be tougher on the participant.
Or maybe,
right?
Yeah, like their version of telepathy.
Right. So my idea was like the Vulcans do it and they don't like to do it. No. And because of the strain it puts on both people. And it's
they'll do it when they have to.
Right. They see it as sacred, but they'll do it when it requires. I would see the Romulans being like, fuck it, we're going to do it on interrogate prisoners, and their minds are going to be jumbled into jello.
We don't
care. Right? Something like that. I was like, okay, cool. You're going to have a special room, like, maybe like Tuvok does when he meditates on Voyager by himself. Like, you're going to have something. They walk into it. This guarded room, remember, it's guarded by a Romulan guard who says,
we don't let round ears in here.
Outsiders aren't allowed in here. And he's just like, I'm Tal Shiar, move it or lose it. And so
I remember that. He's like, we don't let round ears in.
Yes, it's dumb.
It's so fucking.
So it's dumb, but it's like, oh, this is going to be something important and something cool and some new sort of canon for the Star Trek world that would make sense. Cool. I want to see their mind meld. They walk in. They take off their shoes, and he just says, tell me about your dreams, and they start walking a little labyrinth thing. No incense, no like psychedelic like smoke or drug, no mind meld, no touching, just he's playing with the stupid box, and he just says, hey, tell me about your dreams again. Oh, I can't see my dad. Well, just try harder. Keep walking.
You've reached the corner. Now turn.
No explanation is given on how any of this works or what the fuck is happening.
You could do it anywhere.
Anybody. It's just, she just starts walking. And it's just a spirit walk. And I fucking lost the cheapness. It's just a Lord of the Rings mythical thing that just happens. And it's fucking dumb.
And the dream itself is just, it ends in like such a, I'm like, oh God, really?
Yes.
That's
it ends. He gets the information that he's seeking, which
what
is
she finally sees is, I'm on the table, but I'm a marionette or whatever.
she gets that Pinocchio thing, which I thought was dumb. But then he tries to get information. She's like, what do you see out the window?
I see 2 red moons.
And an electrical storm.
Yeah.
There was an electrical storm in space when I was born. It just took me back to J.J. Abrams, where there's always fucking electrical storm in the modern Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was the Narada. There was an electrical storm before the Kelvin was destroyed and I was born. Blah blah blah.
It's hack sci-fi shit.
Yes, it's generic. And so she looks up. Mind you, this is a dream. Mind you, this is a program dream.
Oh yeah.
It's not a people dream.
No, it's
he controls her dream to see stuff in the dream that she couldn't see before, which would make more sense if it was a human, because they create the world in our dream, right? We create where we are in our dreams.
Yeah, and she's supposed to be like ripped off from Data.
Yes, so but her dreams are programmed.
We know what Data's dream should look like.
Yes.
It's cakes and someone sucking brains through a straw.
And you get the idea when she doesn't see her father, right? I can never see his face. Well, yeah, no shit, because his face wasn't programmed into your dream.
Mm-hmm.
But then you turn around and can see 2 suns and a lightning storm.
And also a marionette you.
Why would you? What that had to be programmed in? Why would that be there? It doesn't make sense. It raises too many questions.
Like if you've played games where they're just cheaping it out, they won't model things from the other side. Like
yes.
One of the infamous things that I can think of right off the top of my head is if you play Dark Souls and you get to Guinevere, the guy that does Boundary Break managed to go around to the back of her thanks to a hack.
That is a beautiful analogy.
She has no back.
You're absolutely genius. I didn't even think of that. You're right. If this was a programmed android, they would only create and model in the dream what needs to be modeled.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing else. There would be a boundary break, like you would run into a wall, like in Legend of Zelda. When you go too far, it would just say you can't go any further, not because you can't go any further, because literally there's nothing further.
And if you did somehow break it, it would send you back.
It would send you back,
like
or you would be
whatever, and then it would reset you to coordinates.
Right. It would reset you, or you would see like the world box that you're out of.
Yeah.
Like the sky box in like Counter-Strike. If you break the box, and everyone's done this in old games, you would fall through the ground. And you just look up and, reset. Look, the level is going by, and then I reset. Right?
And then you reset.
In a human being, you could suspend disbelief in a dream and have control because people think we have control in our dreams even today.
And your brain does a lot of like trickery to make you do that stuff.
And you
like
have a brain.
Will fill in blanks.
And so this is either bad writing, which I'm going to go with, or
it is.
It's suggesting that she is perfectly human, which takes the fun out of everything going forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if her brain was, if it was like, if she is the perfect robot cyborg creation that's human, well, then that would ruin everything, because now the thing about Star Trek is it's about exploration, and not just about exploring space, but exploring humanity itself from the inside out, right? The second you create creatures that are legitimately perfect or perfect copies of humans, there's no reason for us to be in space anymore. And I'm looking at this from a 2020 point of view.
The first episode of Next Gen, you know, I'm better than you in many ways, but give it all up to be human.
Yes.
Data.
No one would do that.
No.
Because we had this conversation with the holograms and how that was an issue for Star Trek in general, because now you have slave labor, essentially.
People that can't get hurt, can't die.
But you have an explanation of why it's not really a race of people, because they're created holograms.
They're programs.
Hard light. They're not real. It is a computer program that just has a physical form now. And so that already calls into question why we're out in space doing what we are. Because these ships are crewed by thousands of people at this point. Thousands of people going through the academy or becoming enlisted men, or whatever the case may be, to go out and explore space. Well, that defeats the purpose of it because now you would just create smaller ships and man them with holograms and maybe have a crew of maybe a dozen humans on there.
Well, I mean, even then, there's that entire episode, The Measure of a Man, where they're like, well, if you had like 1,000 datas and you had one on every ship, or you had entire ships full of them,
yes,
what need? That's the entire crux of that episode. Like
that's what Maddox
that's
is
the entire thing. Guinan points out.
Yes.
They're basically a race of fucking slaves at that point.
Yes. Pulling back to humanity. And Maddox isn't even a bad guy. He's just going at it from a very scientific perspective.
He's
as
the
a machine.
antagonist. He's kind of an asshole in that episode, but he eventually comes around by the end.
And he's absolutely correct. If we built these people, and we see it in the first episode, they're slave labor. Well, then the exploration of space becomes null and void at that point because you would just fill starships with these androids. They don't need food.
Androids and holograms, yeah.
They could work 24 hours a day. They don't need to be repaired. They can repair each other. They're essentially a good version of the Borg, and they're still programmed with the tenets of the Federation. And maybe you would have 10 or so humans on board for diplomatic purposes, or maybe as maintenance people like a Geordi. But you could outfit everything, and we wouldn't need Star Trek anymore. Yeah, you'd have datas. And so that's the stupidest thing to reduce this. It's dumb to give her these sorts of dreams that are perfect like that. It's dumb. And so
the people writing this, they pay lip service to things, and that's how they trick. That's how they trick like all those little ass kissing sites into going like, this part was genius. I saw one for this episode, and I saw what they thought was invited genius. To premieres. We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
it's not genius. It's irritating.
You don't want to burn the hand that feeds you because CBS advertises on those sites, and they also want to go to the premieres and stuff.
Yeah. I don't care.
It's bullshit. It's dumb. It's badly written. And so they find out, oh, it's got 2 red moons, and an electrical storm. Romulan's sister immediately plugs it into the machine. Computer, locate 2 moons and an electrical storm for me. Computer finds it instantly, which is very un-Star Trek-like because we're talking about the entire universe that it has to track down a needle in a haystack. I assume it would take some time. Like, and I'm consistently rewriting the show because that's my job, is what I do. But I'm just like, it's little details that should be caught in script rewrites. Like,
was it Next Gen where they're like, we've only charted like 11% of our galaxy?
The idea that this would be a section where everyone is known because Maddox would go there. He would go someplace unknown or hard to find. To rewrite that scene, it would be the same. Computer, calculate every system with 2 planets and an electrical storm, which is like, that's natural. Electrical storms happen fucking all the time in space in this world at any given time. They would just be like, I don't know, maybe in the Briar Patch, go find there.
Yeah, sure, why not?
My rewrite would just be simple. It would be a simple cliffhanger and be like, calculating, and it just we just see it calculating. We don't get an answer. You know what I mean? Like, leave it to next week to find out. You don't give it to us instantly.
Yeah.
And that's how the episode should have ended. It should have ended on a computer screen with that loading bar happening of it scanning, so we don't know. And maybe next week, maybe they find it right away. Maybe they're having trouble locating it. No, cut to the chase. We found it within a second. We're on our way.
That reminds me, you know what this show doesn't have? Ocudograms.
Oh, yeah.
It has none.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as I can tell, it hasn't had a single fucking one.
Yeah, how weird. I didn't even know.
There's no LCARs. There's no Ocudograms.
They mentioned the LCARs I think they mentioned the LCARs. I think the Captain Rios mentions the LCARs.
Did he?
As like being at a date or something like that. But it is weird that we don't get any of that.
Fuck that shit.
Maybe because he didn't want anything to do with it, and he has some rights over it.
The funny thing about LCARs, it's like, this is what drew people to like fucking touchscreen shit.
Yeah, that was the style. Star Trek has always been ahead of its time for technology. This show isn't. This show is just copying what's already out there.
Yeah.
LCARs was new.
Mm-hmm.
Some stuff had talked about touchscreen stuff, like in books, and maybe touched upon a little bit. But before TNG, it was like knobs and like
dials,
CRT TVs. Remember, it was CRT TVs with like a screen over it, like a dotted screen over it, so it looks technical. And it was all green lines because it was vectors. Oh, cool! We created vectors in the 80s. Then Star Trek came around, and it's just this cool LCARS, which, if you go back to TNG now, it still looks futuristic.
Oh yeah, it still looks good.
It doesn't make any sense.
They did a really great job.
It doesn't make any sense how it works, right? Touching things and moving around, but that's the point. Like, they don't have to explain it because it's the future and it's so new that they understand it. We're not supposed to understand how Data's flying the ship.
That's the other thing Star Trek is known for.
Yes.
It's driven actual real world technology forward because it gets people thinking, how could we do this? This is a really great idea.
And this series doesn't do that. It pulls from like the Avengers and other things they've already done.
I want to say like Trekkies, they have like an entire thing with the guy that invented the first artificial heart.
Oh yeah.
His inspiration was fucking Dr. McCoy.
Yes, that's the idea of Star Trek being about humanity. This is just about some old dude playing around in a world that's lazy
and fucked up. Yeah.
And fucked up. So that would have been a cool place to end the episode if I rewrote it myself.
Oh yeah.
Leaving it on that loading screen so we don't know, right? Cliffhanger ending. But it doesn't. No. We go back to Picard. We go back to Picard right after Soji explains the 2 moons and the electrical storm because her Romulan boyfriend kills her. Or tries to kill her in the stupidest way possible.
Yeah, I mean...
Soji already is figuring out she's special, she's different.
Does she even need to breathe?
Yes, she doesn't. So we understand that they kill her. Yes. Okay, so he's done with her and he's disposing of her like part of his job is because they're supposed to hate sins. I get it. That's fine. He does so by locking her in a room, hitting his little puzzle box, and it pops up. And at this point, I'm like, ooh, what's interesting callback. This is going to be a callback to Nemesis, right? This is going to be Thalaron radiation. This is going to be a miniature little green thing like they killed the Senate with, right? That dissolves organic matter, which would still work on her if she has skin and, because something. It would still destroy her.
Organic shit.
Right. Like it would still, I'm like, cool, we're going to get Thalaron radiation. Nope, it's just some red choking mist that's just going to suffocate her.
It's something you'd use nowadays to like purify fucking gold.
Yeah. And so it's a red mist and she starts choking on it. And he's just like, oh, I'm so sad. Let's watch her suffer and die slowly.
I really loved humping that robot.
And then at this point, she clearly knows she's special. She's trying to find a way out. She starts hitting the ground. Realizing
Kill Bill punches her way through the floor.
She Kill Bill punches her way, starts ripping the floor out. And the Romulan guard, being the only smart one in the scene, is like, oh, this bitch is going to get away. We better go in there and kill her. And he goes, no, she's already dead. The gas will kill us. What are you talking about? Open the door, stick your hand in, and fucking just shoot. And then close the door again. I don't know what's happening. She rips through the door or the wall, the floor, and she bails. He is the stupidest man on the planet trying to kill her like this. You could still have done the same thing, have a puzzle box. She picks it up. Guess what? It's a photon grenade. And
why not take the direct approach and just pull a fucking space gun on her?
I would have been fine with the space grenade. You know why? Because it already shows that it worked. They literally already killed her by spitting acid, and she blew up from a phase rifle or a disruptor rifle.
Yeah, disruptor overload.
The original one blew up from a disruptor rifle, which is clearly not as powerful as like a photon grenade. Open it up, grenade, you're dead. No, she gets away. She starts running. Alarms go off. Picard doesn't find her in her room. He has to run like an old man with Hugh to find her. They all meet. They all meet somehow because apparently this Borg cube is very small and only about 3 floors because everyone's at the same place.
It's all convenient.
It's all convenient. They find each other and then they go,
"Hey, Locutus!"
Some dude just yells at them, "Locutus?" For no reason. It's a stupid thing, because we clearly have already established that these are different drones, right? Remember? Hugh literally says, hey, these are different people. They're free. And some random drone on this Romulan cube as they're running says Locutus, and Picard turns around as he's running. And I'm just like, what the fuck was that about? I just wrote here Locutus ... For no reason. It just, Locutus? Hey, bro. And that's what I wrote to you. I was like, what's up? Locutus, yo. What's up, dog? Good to see you again, man. Long time no see, Captain. Oh, you're running. You're a little late. Oh, so no. You call me later. When you get a minute, come back. You're busy. You're busy. Locutus is busy. Go run around. And so they bail, and then they get to the stupidest part of the ship because Hugh and Picard have a touching moment again, fake touching moment where they go, "You remember the ship, right? You're still a Borg, you know it," because apparently all Borg cubes are built the same. And Hugh takes them to a magic room where Picard remembers never being in, and at least the writing is smart enough here
to realize it was after his time.
To realize that he had never been in a room like this because this is from the Voyager era, or the idea of the Queen is from the Voyager era because TNG never touched on the Queen outside of that film. And so they get to a special room, and Hugh explains that this is the Queen's escape pod. And I've already given you the long talk about how the Queen was stupid to Star Trek, but apparently this is a magical space pod for a cube queen to bail out. Now, this problem ruins the Borg in more ways than one. It's not an escape pod, right? You would imagine that maybe my idea was that they were heading to an escape pod that would have ejected a small sphere.
Yeah, or something like that.
Like what we've seen in Star Trek, maybe, or some other ship. But my idea was like, oh, they're heading to like like in First Contact.
Yeah,
a small sphere that
they blew up the cube and the sphere escapes and then goes back in time.
I'm like, oh, okay, perfect setup.
Yeah,
but no, it is a. And then they start talking about what it does, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's just a transporter. Okay, cool, whatever. No. I'm like, oh, they're going to transport back to Rios' ship. Cool.
No, it's a Voyager callback.
It's not that at all. It is like an Iconian gateway bullshit.
No, it's a Sicarian gateway.
Yes, they name drop the Voyager race that built these
40,000 light year range.
It has a range of 40,000. Now think about that. That's massive.
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck is the point of anything the Borg has been doing if they have this technology for the Queen only? Something they wouldn't do.
The entire crux of that episode of Voyager was, we're not going to share this with you. If it gets out of our hands, bad things can happen.
Yes, we can't. Sorry, I know this would get you home in
way faster, but
a couple of years. Like at a 5-year mission, like you were probably supposed to be out anyways. This will get you home. Sorry, we can't give it to you because it's too dangerous. And Janeway's like,
we have our prime directive.
Yes. And Janeway's like, okay, I
understand that. I want to murder you now, but
you're assholes. Fuck you, but I get it.
Because I'm.
And now the Borg just have it.
Killing shit.
And now the Borg have it. And so now the Borg have not only the cubes, which are massive and can destroy entire worlds.
They have transwarp.
Which their network can get them anywhere from the Delta Quadrant to the Alpha Beta quadrants, Gamma quadrants, right? At any point, anywhere. Now, I know that Janeway destroyed the transwarp networks, but she probably didn't destroy everything, right? She just destroyed the ones tying there. So they still have transwarp. The technology is still theirs.
They can rebuild it.
Now they have a technology which will transport a Borg drone at least 40,000 light years.
Multiple Borg drones, as long as it's open.
Right.
It's basically like the light version of an Iconian gateway.
Yes, you put it onto a planet or on a ship, and you just start walking drones through. Right. So the idea, you just ruin the idea of the Borg because you could get a cube within 40 million or 40,000 light years of Earth, right? And the Federation would be very concerned about it. Probably but they wouldn't be like, let's batten down the hatches at Earth, because you could be anywhere 40,000 light years, not even on a trajectory for Earth. Borg cube parks. What is Starfleet going to do? They're not going to go shoot it right away. They're going to go and see what the fuck's up, right?
It's an Iconian gateway with a watermark on it.
Yes, and so you show up, you plant your cube. Starfleet comes and tries to hail. Tries like, hey, what's up? And while they're doing that, you pop a gateway and you send 2 or 3 drones. That's all it would take. Let's say 10. You send a group of 10 drones right to Earth. Starfleet command warps right in, and now Earth is done. No starships there, because your force is sent 40,000, right? You would leave one ship like the Hood, because that's the ship they always leave. But you would send your fleet to meet the Cube, like they always do.
You remember it's a season 1 episode, Conspiracy.
Yes. Same thing.
Basically, the entire reason we have the Borg is because the effects in that episode were too expensive to do on a large scale.
True. They couldn't do it on a large scale. And so you've essentially made them unbeatable. You would send a cube, the fleet would go meet them like they always do, and they would, while you're meeting them, shoot, undetectable by sensors. Mm-hmm. You're sending people even through that little room to Earth, and before the fleet even knows what's happening, Earth is done. Mm-hmm. Earth is assimilated.
Your entire command structure is gone.
Yes, because they wouldn't even need to destroy the world. They would just need to beam into Starfleet Command, and then boop, 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 boop. And at the same time, they could be going other places that are 40,000 light years. Look, here's Deep Space Nine. Oh, look, here's the Klingon homeworld. Oh, you've ruined the Borg. It's dumb.
George, it's only for the Queen, though.
Yes, of course. It's only for the Queen, even though Hugh knows about it. And everyone knows about it. And all these other drones would know about it because Hugh knows about it, and Hugh wasn't special. Mm-hmm. Picard, I get it. He was Locutus. Maybe he knew everything, right? Or was given the capabilities to know everything.
Would have known it if he stuck around.
Right. But Hugh, there was no reason for him to know it because he was before then. But they know about it. And so there's a tense moment where the Romulans are coming in after them because apparently Hugh can't close the fucking hallway doors that are morphing into like the Matrix move. Just shut the doors. Call your Borg friends, whatever. So they're waiting to be, because it needs a minute or so to warm up. Elnor shows up on the ship.
Cuts their heads off.
And we're showed at the beginning of this episode that he says, stay on the ship. I don't need anyone there, please. You guys aren't credentialed to be here.
Yeah. I'm the only one that can go.
The ship is on, the Borg cube is on full red alert, at least from the Romulans, because they're hunting Soji and Picard and Hugh at this point. And Elnor still just beams right in to where they are.
100
no
stealth.
Problems. 100 stealth. No shields up. They don't make a mention that they hack something. They just go back to Rios' ship, and Aggie goes, hey, where's the kid? Or something. And he had transported himself to Picard's location, and they have an argument, which is all of this is stupid. And he says, I'll stay.
With a sword.
Yes, this is a Vulcan or Romulan kid with a sword, and Hugh stay behind. I get that Hugh would stay behind because he's the only one that knows how to shut this thing down, right?
And hide
it because he could probably delete it. I get it. Hugh has to stay behind. Elnor stays behind because he wants to have a badass Ninja Gaiden moment and put up his sword in a hallway.
Choose life.
You could have. There was no reason he couldn't have joined them. My idea was actually that, yes, the Romulans are going to follow you guys somehow because they'll probably extract the information from Hugh. But
you know what's going to happen next week, right?
Yes, but the idea was that get away. Oh, he's probably toast. But Picard, Soji, and Elnor would get away because they have to go someplace they don't know, and Picard is not a fighter. Mm-hmm. He's an old man. Yes, Soji is a badass, but she doesn't understand herself yet. So Elnor being there makes sense if he went with them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they would go to some planet. They don't know what's happening. You do need a hand, or a sword to help you. But for him to stay is stupid.
He opened the console commands and he tapped in / teleport to portal room.
Yes, and he was there. Hugh can handle it. He can deal with it. He can help turn on some drones. He understands how the ship works. He can shut the room down. He can shoot them, whatever. You don't need Elnor there at all, unless he was going through the portal to help them at the start of episode of next week. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we get here. Even if he doesn't kill people, like, oh, maybe it's a world and there's like monsters in the swamp or some shit, and he just kills them. No reason for him to be there. It would have played the same way. And the show ends with him reciting his stupid line of choose life. Mm-hmm. And then you just hear slicing. This episode was just fucking sloppy. It was sloppy in terms of pacing early on. And it was sloppy on the reasoning for anyone doing anything. No one feels like they're making logical sense. to what's happening.
Of course they don't.
You can just see that they're all on a path to get somewhere, and that's it. That's all that happens. Soji just goes with him. Just trust me, please. I knew your sister or your mother or something. Picard says something that Soji would have been like, dude, what? Fucking, this is weird.
I have 2 words that will resonate. Author fiat.
Yeah.
That's the name of the game here.
Yeah.
Things happen because they want them to happen.
They happen.
That's it. There's no
and
logic.
We only have 4 episodes left to round out this Soji arc, which I don't know if we're going to, because there's already a season 2 and they're not going to make a new story. So we're going to get to a cliffhanger point.
You know who's still alive?
Who's still alive?
Lore.
Yes, Lore still. Didn't he just get deactivated?
Yeah, he got deactivated, but he's still alive. He's somewhere.
Yeah. This is all stupid.
I mean, a competent writer could do something with that, but I'm not optimistic.
I give this a C, just a solid failing C. That's it. And that's being generous. I know a lot of the reviews out there are just like, oh, A-, B+. Now, fuck you. You're all hacks. This is a C. It wasn't well structured. No character development really happened here. We just got more of the same and really cheesy, crappy parts that don't make any sense. And it felt like it took forever.
The effects crew is doing the best job they can.
Yeah.
The cinematographers.
Yeah. God bless them. It's still pretty. Watch it if you want.
Take your brain out.
Watch it if you want a pretty looking sci-fi show, but not a Star Trek show.
No. So
that's it for Star Trek Picard this week. Let us know in the comments. I know our Star Trek Picard bits have been our most popular ones. I'm immensely surprised that many of you are sitting through this an hour or 2 hours in. I know you are, because you're mentioning stuff that I talk about at the end. So if you've listened to the end, let me know you made it to the end. Yes. And let us know what you thought, what your thoughts are on Hugh's relationship here, what they're doing to the Romulans, the problems with the Borg now, and what do you think is going to happen next in this coming week's episode? Well, we know from the trailers that they're going to meet Riker and Troy, which I don't understand, because they still look like they're at the chateau.
No, they're at Captain Kirk's log cabin from the Nexus.
Oh, fuck. Of course they are. If they pull some Nexus shit, I wouldn't be surprised.
That's what it looks like to me.
I don't know what they're going to do in the story, but I don't see Troy and Riker hanging out at a cabin and Riker looking like Santa Claus.
Well, I mean, we're going to see one of their kids.
Because Riker is younger than Picard. Mm-hmm. And the last we saw where Nemesis ended, they just transferred to the Titan. And so how long was Nemesis? 2002, 4?
I want to say like 2000 or 2005 maybe? At the most.
Yeah, it's something there. But so we're looking at 20 years. 20 years. Riker would not have been retired by now or done.
2002. December 9th, 2002.
So you're about 20 years, a little less, right? I don't think Riker would have been done by then. Captaining his ship. Or at least, I mean, he may be in this, but at the Riker of TNG, his whole goal was to get to that captaincy when he was ready. Mm-hmm. Like, he had been called up a bunch of times and declined because
because they're like, I have serious debt. The first one, he's like dealing with his dad.
Yes, he's ready, but he's not emotionally ready.
Yeah.
2, he wanted the Enterprise Center seat, which I think he should have gotten. But regardless of that, he did get the Titan. In my picture of what Riker would have done, he would have spent like 10 years on the Titan doing his thing and would have been promoted or moved to the Enterprise when it became available. Or,
eventually promoted to Admiral.
Or a refit or something. But I feel like he would still be in Starfleet doing stuff. It doesn't make any sense. And I hate this. So let us know. And we'll catch you guys earlier for another roundup of Star Trek this coming weekend. So from there, we're going to leave the sci-fi world of Star Trek behind, but we're going to move into Star Wars, because if it's not one thing, it's the other.